you said, why don't we talk about Wish You Were Here?
And the reason was because Shine On You Crazy Diamond is my happy place.
This is old school, man.
This guy is what happens when the artist shakes hands with this guy.
I love this stuff. So 1975, the other things that came out this year.
I had no idea until just now. Wow. But so it's whenever he says it's all right, which is like the machine saying it's all right, but just to make sure you know that it's not all right, whenever he says it, the song goes to 7 and it plays a chord that has a minor ninth dissonance against the C.
20 million, I want to repeat that. 20 million copies. That's incredible.
Yeah, and that's not like 20 million streams on Spotify now. Dark Side of the Moon was so unexpectedly catchy. Especially Roger Waters really felt like they were selling their souls, or that their souls had been bought by the success of Dark Side of the Moon. I think this album is to Pink Floyd what Kid A was to Radiohead.
What is this?
It comes with a
Some
postcard?
sort of a postcard. And I don't know if I didn't have the original one.
What do you do with a postcard? When you're on a trip, you send it to someone. What do you write on a postcard? Boom.
Dude, this is why vinyl is so cool.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're a fan of Pink Floyd, this video is for you. And I am super, super pumped today because I have a good friend of mine named Jeff Lerner that's joining me today. Jeff actually you guys used to come in and rent the studio.
Oh, yeah.
I've talked about this on this channel a few times. This is, even though we're filming a podcast here, this is a fully, it's a working studio where we actually have clients come in here and use this place. And you guys were, actually right after we built some of this stuff, you guys started coming in here.
I like to think that we were like your first really, I don't want to say big client, but big client in terms of like, we used your space a lot.
You were here.
We bought a lot of time.
Yeah,
here.
you guys were here a lot way back when.
Which I loved because I was super stoked that like a local high-end studio was opening, and I was excited to be able to come in right at the beginning and support it with a lot of business.
Yeah, it was great having you here. Now I'm going to do something that you didn't know I was going to do. But,
oh dear.
Because you didn't even know that I had this sitting here. This is, if you follow this channel at all, you see this book on the set. We move it all the time. This is, you didn't know, there's no money being exchanged, nothing. This is just me.
I'm feeling
okay?
a wee bit awkward right now.
You recorded the audiobook for this here in the studio.
I did, right over there.
Right over there.
Yeah, in the booth.
I loved this book so much. The last couple of Christmases, I've actually ordered this and given this as Christmas presents. So this is a total plug that Jeff didn't even know I was going to do. It's called Unlock Your Potential. This book it's amazing. It just is. It'll just change the way you look at the world and the way you look at money and the way you look. I mean, it's amazing. By the way,
I was not prepared to get emotional on the Pink Floyd podcast, but here we are.
Yeah. So so we were texting not long ago because I'd run into one of the guys that worked with you and we started talking about the podcast and I said, actually, Jeff needs to come be on here because you are a really accomplished musician. And I thought why haven't I had Jeff come be on the podcast? Because you and I used to talk about music. You'd sit here and play the piano. You're this accomplished jazz pianist. And so anyway, so I thought we for sure got to get you to come and talk, just be on this show.
Totally.
Talk about music.
I am so stoked. And like, I don't have a lot of outlets for my musicianship or my musical sensibility in my life. Although I will tell you that I did recently start playing in the worship band at my church.
Oh, good. Okay.
Once a month. So I've at least got that. And honestly, we moved into a new house about a year ago and I wasn't even able to bring my piano. Oh. So like, this is exciting.
Yeah, you had a grand piano in that.
I have a 9-foot Steinway concert grand that is in storage. It's actually, it's a travesty.
That's amazing. I remember seeing that because that's the same one that the house that I used to go to, right? Yeah. That we'd film at.
Yeah, So we used to rent a separate house as an office film space. And that, it was okay to just dominate an entire room with a piano. But, my actual home where my family lives, they're not as open to that.
Yeah,
so.
That's very, okay. Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, so anyway, so I texted you and I said, come on the show. What do you want to talk about? And you just said, how about Pink Floyd?
Pink Floyd.
And I love talking about Pink Floyd, although we haven't really, I think we may have done one video on this channel in the last 10 months on Pink Floyd. We almost never talk about them. Although I've been a fan of Pink Floyd ever since the first CD that I bought was like a lot of people. The first CD they bought was Dark Side of the Moon.
Okay.
Because that album was on the top best-selling albums for just years and years and years.
It's also like possibly the most recognizable album cover.
Right.
Ever. So if you're just walking through a record store, what am I going to buy? Like we're all trained. That was like, it's also like probably one of the first posters a lot of people had on their wall, just because that prism,
that
image
simplistic thing.
Yeah.
And that album, I remember hearing it whenever I bought my first CD player and whatever, but it just blew my mind. Just the sound quality, the songs are so incredible. And anyway, I just fell in love with that thing. And so you said Pink Floyd, and of course, when I was a younger teenager, I imagine a lot of you did the same thing, went and saw The Wall at a midnight movie. I think it might have been 82 or 83. They used to play that. Did you ever go see it at a midnight movie?
No, I didn't. And I had this friend that was obsessed with Pink Floyd and was always trying to get me to go do that with him. And I never did. And I'm having a lot of remorse right now.
It was The Wall and Rocky Horror Picture Show were the two midnight movies that we used to go see. How many of you used to go see The Wall and Rocky Horror?
Horror. I did that. We throw the rice.
Oh yeah, it was crazy stuff going to that thing. So anyway, so I asked, well, what do you want to do? Talk about Pink Floyd, and you said, why don't we talk about Wish You Were Here? And I thought, I don't even own that.
And the reason was because like Shine On You Crazy. I said in the text, Shine On You Crazy Diamond is my happy place. I think I said that. And if I didn't say that, I'm saying it now.
Yes, you did.
I just get lost in it. No matter how many times.
Well, it's an amazing piece of music, and it has how long is it when you put the two pieces together?
Yeah, it's like to me, it's hilarious. It's like 25 minutes. It's a 9-part song, and there's only 3 other songs on the album.
Yeah, there's not. When you look at
it's almost like
it
would be an EP, except this one song is so long, they can't call it an EP.
And I think I think the first time I ever heard "Shine On You Crazy Diamond" was on. I have a collection of great dance songs, Pink Floyd, and I think that's on there. I'm pretty sure, and that I think is the first time I'd ever became familiar with it. And so then on this album, of course, it takes up the vast majority of the record, and then the other 3 songs on here are so amazing.
They are. They're iconic songs.
They're incredible. And so you have a connection with this. I'm actually curious, what is it about that song that resonates with you?
So I've actually asked myself that. I mean, I've learned a lot more about the lore of the song and how it was an homage to Syd Barrett and the history. But honestly, I loved the song before I knew any of that. And I think it's honestly just because as a jazz musician, I naturally gravitate towards a lot of, I shouldn't say I gravitate towards it, but I have a whole appreciation for instrumental music. It's not what most pop music has somebody singing most of the time. Right. And that song, out of 25 minutes, how many minutes is somebody singing? Like 2?
Oh, right. 4? Not a lot.
Yeah. And so I think just the atmospheric, ambient, instrumental vibe, but also like, can we just say it? Like Pink Floyd, they could get so much juice out of the simplest little riffs, simplest little ideas. And that song to me is just like, how much can we milk this in a way that is so compelling? And
one of the part of their secret sauce was David Gilmour's guitar playing.
Yeah.
I've often said what makes him such a master is that every note he ever played meant something. Like you go to listen to all of his different solos, everything he did, it was just all, it was perfect. It was simple. It was executed flawlessly. Yeah. The tone was great. And so getting back to what you just said there, that is what they were all about. And especially, like I said, I think their secret sauce, I'm a huge David Gilmour fan.
Oh, how many artists, how many guitarists can you like sing entire solos?
This is exactly.
Think about like Comfortably Numb. Exactly. Like you could sing that entire solo the way you sing a song.
When I say that every note counts, my mind immediately goes to that solo.
Oh, I have like goosebumps on my legs. I won't show your audience, but they're there.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, and on top of it, he has one of the most pure singing voices ever. Mm-hmm. I love listening to him sing. And it's interesting because when you contrast him with Roger Waters, they have these just totally different sounds. And it was funny because I'm just going to sidetrack for a second. I was always partial to David Gilmour's voice. I love his voice.
I think Roger Waters would agree he was the better singer.
But here's the thing that's so funny, because I didn't love Roger Waters singing when I listened to him in the studio, but then back in the It was sometime in the late 90s. He came touring as a solo artist through Denver. And a friend of mine talked me into going. I'm like, all right, whatever. And I'll be honest with you, it was one of my favorite concerts I've ever been to. And he sang pretty much almost everything throughout the night. And I remember sitting there going, why is it that when I'm listening to this stuff on the studio recordings, I don't love his voice, but here I am, and I just think he's unbelievable. So anyway, just kind of a strange thing. I
got to say, I'm jealous. So that same friend that I had that used to try to get me to go see The Wall went to that same concert tour, only it was in Houston, in the Woodlands, Texas, at the Cynthia Woods Mitchell Pavilion, and he literally had a ticket for me. And I couldn't. Something came up and I couldn't go. So the same tour you're talking about, late '90s, Roger Waters, I couldn't go. So
man, it was good. I was shocked at how good it was. So
posthumous or retroactive FOMO, whatever
something
that is.
Like that. Yeah. Anyway, it was spectacular. So anyway, when you said you wanted to look at that record or talk about that one, I thought, well, I don't have it, so I bought a new version of it from Amazon. But it looks like they have all the same packaging. This is kind of an interesting. This image right here with these mechanical...
and you have a camera where they can like see what we're talking about, right?
Yeah. Henrik, thank you for putting that over there.
Yeah,
so
I actually have a question because I'm not like a big LP like record guy. So what's interesting to me is I'm very familiar with the cover art that's on the CD. It's the two guys shaking hands, one of them's on fire. But when you read about this, they intentionally designed two different pieces of artwork, one for the cover and one for this vinyl wrap here. Is that typical?
As I understand it, this was, how they did it originally. I don't know, so many of these different bands would just try these different things to just, I mean, bands that would, like Led Zeppelin used to do this kind of thing. In Through the Outdoor is a classic example of that, where they had that bag, that paper sack that was over the cover of In Through the Outdoor, and they had something like 6 covers.
Okay.
And you never knew which one you were buying. And
that's interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
and so vinyl culture, you would have all these kind of oddball things. You'd have all your really normal stuff, but then you'd have some bands that would try just really unusual stuff, like Traffic would have these weird... the edges cut off, and Grand Funk Railroad did these strange things. One of them, what was it? E Pluribus Funk was just, the whole thing was round. And then they had another one where you pull these 3D glasses off. And
I knew something
was
told
so
me
great.
Robert is going to know a lot about like 70s album design. I'm glad I went there.
Yeah. I have, cause I have a few thousand of these things, and it's just, I love records just for that reason. Well, because, and I'm quite a bit older than you, but the vinyl culture in its original form back in the 70s and 80s was such a cool thing, because it was a communal thing. It was a social thing. Like I remember, I think I've talked about this on this channel before. You'd be walking home from school and you'd start talking to somebody, and they'd be like, "Hey, have you ever heard so?" And then next thing you know, you're over at their house, flipping through their records, putting records on, showing each other things. And so that was all part of it. And then, buying these things, the whole culture that went around it. And it's unfortunately kind of lost. And you can see that people have a desire for that type of connection with their music. The fact that it just doesn't really ever go away. Even today you've got young people buying these things.
Oh yeah. I have 2 boys, 22 and 21, that are super into vinyl, and one of them in particular, that's all he wants every holiday is just like
it's just this
some
really
classic
cool
record, or maybe a new record. And a lot of new artists, I think about the economics. I'm like, because new artists, I mean, it's all digital distribution, but then they still bother to release their album on vinyl because there's like their cult following is going to buy the record. And it's like, it's going to be like $60 or something, but it's the novelty of owning it.
I think this one was 40 something for this. And so, it's not cheap.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Especially because it used to be $7.99.
It's endured as like a specialty item. It's actually interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So this one has this little, and this is also on the centered sticker on the record itself, the label. So then when you open this up, then we have the cover that everybody's kind of familiar with, which is that right there.
Yeah.
The 2 guys. Now, as I understand it, so this was shot at the Warner Brothers studio complex.
Right.
And the guy, I think they took this picture like 15 times trying to get it just right. And this really is See, today you do it in Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
This really is a guy on fire, and he's wearing a fire suit, and he actually has a fire helmet thing.
You can see the shine of like the fire.
Yeah, so this is not exactly
or whatever.
So he's on fire. Apparently, he did get kind of burned at one point doing this.
Well, yeah, that's not like a let's do infinite takes.
This is old school, man.
Well, I noticed they're right by a drain because they probably had to come spray them with water.
You know, that's actually a really good point.
To go right down the drain.
I would have never noticed that, but that's actually a really good point. Yeah. But it's an interesting thing when you look at the concept of this album, and we had talked a little bit about that earlier, because when you look at this album, and you have the song "Welcome to the Machine," which oh my gosh,
I know.
Is there a better song? First of all, is there a better Pink Floyd song ever? I don't know. It's so great. And then you have "Have a Cigar."
That's a whole other podcast right there.
Yeah, probably so. But I just
Pink Floyd songs.
I love that song.
So good.
And then you have a cigar, because there's this theme in here about the music business, and that's a part of what, as I understand it, this is supposed to represent.
Yeah, this guy is what happens when the artist shakes hands with this guy. Your soul, and then there's also supposedly a connotation about that. Actually, this is the record industry, and this guy's making a deal with the devil. So I've heard it interpreted in both directions.
Oh, interesting.
This is the artist going up in flames versus this is the devil that is the industry. So,
okay, interesting.
We could debate that.
So,
too.
yeah, that is that's pretty interesting. I hadn't heard it that way. So now you have again. What is it? You were talking a little bit about this album and its place in Pink Floyd history.
Yeah.
Now, and I want to get into that for a second. But what I think is important is kind of putting this in context. Of this came out on September 12th of 1975, and what I find fascinating sometimes,
we just had the anniversary. I didn't even. We literally just.
Oh my gosh!
Wait, 1970. We're 3 days. Recording is 3 days after the 50th anniversary of this album.
Wow!
I had no idea until just now. Wow,
that's actually kind of interesting. I wasn't even paying attention to that fact. Okay, well, one of the things that's interesting to me when I'm looking at things like this is, first of all, this one little spot right there,
right,
where you've kind of burned out the edge, and it happens to be on the side with the flame.
But it's like a reverse burn. Or if this was a picture that caught on fire, the burn would go in, but it comes out.
So it's like this is the frame.
Yeah.
And the picture inside had burned the frame just a little bit. I love little subtle things like that because they, where they push outside of the borders.
Notice the flames. It's like the wind is blowing the heat this way, and it singed
out the edge of the thing. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
So putting this in context, again, 1975 September. So this thing is 50 years old.
Right.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, looking at all the other stuff, thinking of this in terms of the history of Pink Floyd and in terms of popular music at the time, because 2 years earlier, in March of '73, is when we get Dark Side of the Moon, which was their pivotal album. Because before that, I mean, they'd been around, because Dark Side of the Moon was their 8th album. This was their 9th. So they'd had a lot of stuff, but they just hadn't hit that commercial, and I don't know that they ever thought they would. The real commercial appeal.
When you hear them, when you hear like interviews and them, transcripts from back in the day.
The music.
I don't think they ever thought what they were trying to do was going to have that broad of an appeal.
Yeah. And it's amazing the broad appeal that ended up happening. But put this in context for a second. I love this stuff. So 1975, the other things that came out this year, Physical Graffiti, Led Zeppelin, Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen, Toys in the Attic, Aerosmith came out this year. Let's see here. Other interesting ones. Kiss Alive came out this year. And that's when Kiss exploded. Because they had 3 albums before Alive and they were going nowhere. And it was Alive that put them on the map, which is kind of interesting. Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. So this is Rainbow's first album. Fly By Night by Rush came out this year. Straight Shooter by Bad Company, which I loved. And let's see here. So that gets you. Oh, and Come Taste the Band. That's interesting because Come Taste the Band was basically the end of Deep Purple. And so Deep Purple was disappearing as these other bands were really, really exploding. So anyway, just kind of interesting now to put that in context.
But these were like the weird kids at that party.
Oh yeah.
unapologetically. And like they never expected to be like the most popular person at that party. I think they thought they'd just sit in the corner and be weird.
Yeah, you're right.
I compare them a lot to like they were to the 70s for me what like Radiohead was to the 90s and 2000s. The weird people that you never thought would get that big.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you were talking a little bit about this earlier with that in context of thinking of this album in terms of they just hit it with Dark Side of the Moon, and then kind of this. Now what?
So I'll give you my hypothesis.
Yeah, I love
my
it.
totally unvalidated hypothesis about this album is that it was this moment because there's like two themes that cut through this album. One is the record industry as this sort of like almost demonic, almost Orwellian monster that'll consume you. But there's also this like mourning and grieving the fact that Syd Barrett, their founding member, is no longer part of the band, and he's actually going crazy. So like "Wish You Were Here" is like I wish you were here with us as we're now fighting this battle. And that I think and if you read Roger and David both talked about how they felt like they were, although they had differing views. David wasn't so anti. Roger Waters was the more like histrionic, dramatic person. David Gilmour was like, let's just make good music. But especially Roger Waters really felt like they were selling their souls, or that their souls had been bought by the success of Dark Side of the Moon. And so this album, that's Welcome to the Machine. It's like, welcome, you're here. You're now part of this big machine. Have a Cigar. That's all about this like sleazy record exec. And we can dissect the songs. But the point I was making is like, I think Dark Side of the Moon, to your point, caught them so by surprise. And they're like, wow, what are we going to do here? We are way more famous than we ever expected to be, which means we have way more reach. We have way more privilege, but we also have way more responsibility. Like, who do we want to become? Are we going to lean into being like the psychedelic progressive rock band? And like, if you listen to this song, there is a lot of like synthy kind of weirdness or this album, but also it's like a blues rock album too. It's like got a grit that I don't think was Dark Side of the Moon. And so I feel like they were wrestling with like, okay, what are we going to do now? Are we going to let this machine turn us into what it wants us to become, which is like Dark Side of the Moon Part 2, Dark Side of the Moon Part 3? How long can we milk this concept? Or are we going to figure out and go our own way? And I think this was their like, I honestly have this feeling that they released this album to like stall for time while they figured that out. Even the construction of the album, that it's basically 60% of the album is one song in two parts. And then the other two of the other three songs are like, screw you, music industry, even though you're the only reason anybody's listening to this album now.
Yeah.
And then the other one remaining song is like, hey, Syd, we miss you, wish you were here. And I just think it was them just like taking a beat and deciding what they want to do. And then you look at the next two albums that came after that, which were Animals in the Wall, which took on these like big socio-political themes and where essentially it was like they had decided, okay, now that we've got this platform, we're going to go make art that matters and tries to move the world forward and expresses our worldview. But this was just like I say, I think it was just them deciding if they were really going to go where they went or if they were going to stay where they'd been.
And it's such an interesting thing to think of it that way, because when you look at The Wall specifically, because when they did the live tour on that album, the whole idea that Roger Waters wanted to do was basically literally build a wall between them and the audience.
Right.
Which is just like, what? I mean, you're performing for these and you're going to, but he did have this, getting back to what you said a minute ago, these two guys were very different because he did have this almost, the way I look at it is almost melodramatic.
Yeah, that's why I said histrionic. Yeah. Like he's a dramatist.
Exactly. Yeah. It was just so, but it was very interesting that way. And he was a pure artist in that sense. But yes, this was, in some ways, because so many bands, and they did something that most groups can't do. Because when you look at the trajectory of most bands, not all, most though, this is true, when they hit that high point and they finally get that album that really explodes, that really goes, that really makes it like Dark Side of the Moon, it's almost always downhill after that.
Yeah.
And then they just, and then they go away. This was amazing because they come out with this, which I mean, this thing worldwide sold 20 million. I want to repeat that. 20 million copies. That's incredible.
Yeah, and that's not like 20 million streams on Spotify now.
This is physical things somebody manufactured, shipped, shrink wrap, and then people going about. It's incredible.
That's almost like Thriller. I mean, Thriller probably sold 50 or something. But I mean, there's not that many albums that sell 20 million.
No, there's not that many. Yeah. It is in one of those. And then they followed up with The Wall, which was another thing that was just, I mean, how many times when I was a kid did I hear that We Don't Need No Education,
totally.
hear that song? Yeah. So they just they hit this high point with Dark Side of the Moon, and then they just wrote it. And it wasn't like they started falling off. It just got more interesting and better. Mm-hmm. And so they somehow captured this thing that most people, because, we're sitting here talking about they're fighting against the industry. Most people don't know what to do with it at that point and fail because they get inside their heads, their egos take over, and then they start to suck. But not them.
That's why I say I think they were the Radiohead of the 70s. Like, I think this album is to Pink Floyd what Kid A was to Radiohead.
Did that one have Optimistic on it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is one of the greatest. Do you know the song, Henrik? Optimistic, Radiohead?
I got more chills on my legs.
That is one of the greatest pieces of music from that entire era. That song, I used to listen to Optimistic when I'd go running because it just had this, I don't know, there was some sort of energy in that tune that just unlike anything else, man. Anyway, they're great. And that's actually a really great comparison because their music was so unusual.
Well, and Dark Side of the Moon was like this weird convergence of like all these bizarre ideas, but they packaged it in a way that was like so hooky and catchy and singable. Weirdly, unexpectedly singable. That's what Radiohead did on OK Computer for me. And then it's like all of a sudden, and I have actually definitely heard the Radiohead guys talk about like we were suddenly way more popular than we ever intended to be.
It's so funny.
And so they had to take a beat and decide what they wanted to do with that. And I think that's what Kid A was. And then what came out after that, was it Amnesiac? Or whatever, I forget the name of the one that came after that. It starts with an A. But yeah, and then they went on to do all this way divergent stuff. And they actually had to like get off the record label model altogether, but that was a different time. But I just think this was that same parallel.
Yeah.
It's like, what am I going to do with this fame? I've now been bought, but will I be sold? It's that moment.
That's kind of interesting. So let's flip this thing over and take a look at what's on the back. This is kind of an interesting image because he has no face and he also has no wrists and he has no ankles, which is kind of like the idea of I've seen it written that's like an empty suit.
Yeah, it does make you kind of wonder why did they give him a faceless face when they didn't give him even any flesh anywhere else?
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of that one.
Yeah, it is pretty fascinating though, but they had to put the gloves and the shoes on because he's like the Invisible Man in that sense. And maybe that's the idea here is that you literally have the Invisible Man and you had to put something over his face to see that there's even a face there. I don't know. It's pretty fascinating. But they on this record here, that's the same thing that we had on the and this is also on the record itself. So
and this is standing in the desert.
Yeah.
Where nothing grows.
That's actually, I hadn't thought about that.
And then this little, any insight there?
I don't know.
Looks
this
like you spilled something on the record.
Yeah. Anyway, these little simple things like this, I just absolutely
But we can
love.
be sure that nothing was accidental. Like there is meaning in every.
I was going to say you can be. So again, I don't know how much of this is. This little
what
postcard,
is this? It comes with a
some
postcard?
sort of a postcard. And I don't know if I didn't have the original one.
What do you do with a postcard? When you're on a trip, you send it to someone. What do you write on a postcard? Boom.
Dude. Now I have chills.
Serious.
That's beautiful.
Depth.
I would have never picked that up. That's crazy. In case anybody hasn't figured that out, put it down in the notes before I say it. But the obvious reason that you would have that is wish you were here.
And they would likely be sending it to Syd.
That is really something. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
I love it. And then this is the same image right there. And this is, we've got this body, person diving. There's no splash, but you have the reflection still, just the bottom half of the body.
Yeah, like, and this was
pretty interesting.
1975. They didn't like generate this with some sort of AI. How did they?
I know,
how did
it's
they
fascinating
capture
how they did this stuff back
splashless
then.
dive.
I don't know.
And there is
It's
a
pretty
reference
amazing.
on the back. It actually says this was, wait, where did it say? Oh yeah, Montesey, California.
Oh, interesting.
So they're claiming it's well, I guess it would be a photograph, but
Yeah, and it
from
was
some
done by
lake in
Hipgnosis.
California. Okay.
And they're really well-known graphic people that did a lot of record covers. How interesting. And it actually says "Wish You Were Here" right there. Okay, check that out, everybody. Wish you were here. That is pretty awesome. And then we have this. We have this bit of, looks like.
Is that the splash?
Maybe this is the splash.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Love it. And the little
Then we have all the
corners.
lyrics for the different songs.
And there's some
Wish
great
You're Here.
lyrics in here.
Oh, they're.
This album, I mean, you could do a whole other dive on just the lyrics of this album.
Look at this.
Which one is Pink? That's in Have a Cigar when the record executive
Yeah.
says, so which one is Pink?
You know,
Like, you guys are great. I love your music. So which one is Pink?
that's really funny too.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things that a lot of people would say that didn't understand.
Right.
And that's actually such a great point, because when you're dealing with a record industry, a record company, they really, all they know is the dollars and cents of it. They don't understand it.
Right.
And and that's actually part of the symbol there, where it's like, which one of you, in other words, you don't know anything about us. All you know is that we make you money.
Mm-hmm.
So which is pretty fascinating. This is kind of interesting too. They have these three cut out, but not this one. And then I don't
the
understand
symbolism.
this.
I want to know.
I know.
What
It'd be
everything
fun
means.
to sit and pick this apart some more sometime. And then this scarf that's blowing in the wind somehow. I love
in
this
like
imagery.
a weirdly geometric tree arrangement.
Yes.
This
And
is
check
not just
this
some
out.
casual forest.
This is not straight.
Oh, yeah.
This is bent. These are not 90-degree angles.
Well, and this one looks like...
is that one straight?
I can't tell, but what I can... Oh, yeah, so this one's curved.
Yeah. Top
This-
and bottom and top and are
The top is
straight.
the top is like a pretty, I don't know, a consistent S. This one looks more erratic, and this one, I don't know. They're not equally uneven,
Wow.
if you will.
I love this stuff. This is why vinyl is so cool.
Yeah.
You find records that have all these little things in them, and you can go on for hours, and it makes it so much fun. And then let's just look at the inside. So there's what the inside looks like. Slightly different.
And that's just like a mechanistic handshake, basically, which is probably pretty easy to decode.
yeah,
in
you would think
context.
that'd kind of be the point.
Yeah, welcome to the machine.
Welcome to the machine. Now there's an interesting thing about that too. I want to read something and have you kind of respond to it, because what we do a lot of times, I don't know how many of the shows you've watched on this channel before, but one of the things that we do a lot on this channel is we'll go back and look at what was being said at the time. And so what I did is I found a newspaper article from October 3rd of 1975. So this album was just a few weeks old. And part of what makes this stuff so interesting, reading these things, is they don't have the 50 years in between that we do. They don't have Animals. They don't have The Wall. They don't have the breakup. They don't have
They
all
don't
the
even
other
have
stuff.
the sales numbers. I mean, they probably it had a big release, but they don't know that it's
They
going
don't
to
know
be
anything
a
about
best-selling
this. And so
all-time
when you
record.
listen to these people write these reviews, it makes it that much more interesting to me, because they're coming from this position of, what do we think of this?
Right.
So I'm going to just read a little bit of this to you, and I want to get your stop me. I will stop too, but stop me if you hear anything that sounds interesting to you. And we also, please, if you're watching this, I want to hear your comments on any of these things, what you think these things mean, these cutouts, the scarf, all this other stuff. What do you think all this stuff means? Down in the comments, we'd love to hear your feedback on this. So this article is from Ontario, Canada, October 3rd, 1975, and it says, "Wish You Were Here" is latest Pink Floyd album. And it goes, all right, here we go. Wish You Were Here, Pink Floyd's long-awaited album, comes to North American audiences nearly 3 years after their monstrously successful The Dark Side of the Moon recording, which rocketed them from relative obscurity into the halls of rock stardom. And that's what we were talking about just a minute ago. That was the one that all of a sudden there's like, whoa, how did we get here? In spite of Floyd's immense pop, Wish You Were Here commences and terminates with Shine On You Crazy Diamond, a song which admirably blends several musical themes and moods. In part 4, the music yields to the band's more progressive inclinations as Waters sings, "Remember when you were young, you shone like the sun, shine on you crazy diamond. Now there's a look in your eyes like black holes in the sky, shine on you crazy diamond." The words are most assuredly written for Syd Barrett. Now, it's interesting that right there at the time, they were already kind of, I don't know if that was common knowledge or whatever, but right there at the beginning, people kind of understood that. Close friend and one-time musical colleague of lyricist and bassist Roger Waters, lead guitarist Barrett left Pink Floyd in 1969 due to a mental illness, and for a while the band starved since many people thought Barrett was Pink Floyd.
I hadn't heard that. That's funny.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting.
Although I do know how he came up with the name, if anybody cares. I think they were called the Tea Set, and they were on a gig, and there was another band on the same gig called the Tea Set.
Really?
So they had to spontaneously come up with another name, and so Syd Barrett combined the names of two of his favorite blues guitarists, whose I can't actually remember. It was Pink something and Floyd something, were like two, I guess, reasonably well-known blues guitarists in the 70s, and he just smashed it together like on the spot and said, "Oh, we're Pink Floyd," or no, I think it was called the Pink Floyd Experience, and then they shortened it, but it was just because their other name got usurped.
I'd never even heard that. That's really interesting. The song's 3 verses each relate one phase of Barrett's life. In his days with Pink Floyd, Barrett is characterized as being caught on the crossfire of childhood and stardom, and as a target for faraway laughter. Syd Barrett's nonconformist lifestyle and eccentric artist taste probably made him a target for faraway laughter, since even Waters admits that Syd was in some ways a stranger to him, but he also respectfully deems him a legend and later a martyr. At least part of the band's genius lies in creating music sufficiently familiar so the listeners can identify with it, yet intrinsically innovative so they may discover something excitingly fresh in it. That is so insightful. Because that really, in some ways, and I think we talked about this, is in some ways the secret sauce.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, Dark Side of the Moon was so unexpectedly catchy.
Like, oh my gosh, yes.
Right?
I mean, ticking away the moments that make up a dull day. When he said those lines, I mean, instantly, you're just like, it grabs you. It's simple. You get it. And I mean, how about Money? Yeah. I mean, all this stuff with just these catchy things that were in the middle of this cacophony of complexity.
Yeah, it actually, if we just fixate on this one unique quality of like catchiness in the context of, artistic expression unleashed, they might be the pinnacle of that. I mean, they're pretty unique in that regard.
I'd have a hard time arguing with that. Yeah, yes, they were very unique in that way. It was really good because I'll just take a little side note on this thing too, because when you look at the song "Money," for example, the time signature
7 right?
in 7 and having a hit pop song in a 7 time signature.
Yeah,
and have it to be catchy,
that's
like
catchy.
We were just saying.
That like you don't need to know how to count in 7 to like sing that melody.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But when you're singing that melody, you're singing in 7. But if I said like sing in 7, you couldn't do it. I mean, to a non-musician, but like they have no problem singing that. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is incredible how they pulled this off.
And I will say there's some weird time shifts in Wish You Were Here. What can I say? Can I just share one of my favorites? It's in what's the one? What's it? There's Have a Cigar, and then I'm blanking out. What's the next song?
I mean, not Wish You Were Here.
No, it's not Wish You Were Here. It's Shine On You Crazy Diamond parts 1 through 5. Then it's Have a Cigar. Then it's it's in Welcome to the Machine, which is basically all in just this like droning E minor, da da da. And the whole song is only 2 chords. It's E minor to C major 7, which is actually just E minor. If you put a C in the bass, it changes C. So it's really just E minor and the bass shifts. but there's only 2 bars in the whole song that play any other chord, and it's an A chord, which is a weird juxtaposition because you've been in E minor with the C and an A has a C sharp, so it creates this like weird shift. But they only play it, and actually, you've got the lyrics right here. So it's where he says, "Oh, it's all right. We know where you've been." That's a 3/4 bar. But that's a 3/4 bar.
Yes, that's right.
It's the only 3/4.
I hadn't even thought about that.
And it's the A chord. And then
because it has to kind of like, it feels like it stutters for a second.
And then they go into, they have this weird instrumental 3/4 breakdown in the middle. But then when he says again, "It's all right, we told you what to dream." That's the other 3/4 bar. Or no, I think it's a 7/4. But so it's whenever he says "it's all right," which is like the machine saying "it's all right," but just to make sure you know that it's not all right, whenever he says it, the song goes to 7 and it plays a chord that has a minor ninth dissonance against the C.
Wow.
And I don't know.
That's so cool. I love that. I don't know how many times when I pick up a guitar, the first thing I play is and do that with that, throw that C in there on the next thing. Man, it's so great. That stuff is it's so amazing. Okay. Very good. That's awesome.
I got a little nerdy there that. For a sec. But.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, here we go. So accomplished by something exciting, fresh in it. This approach to music is accomplished by integrating 2 complementary styles: electronic art music without corporeal rhythm and progressive rock consumed in corporeal rhythm. So hear that again. Electronic art music without corporeal rhythm and progressive rock consumed in corporeal rhythm, effecting an enjoyable dissolution of time and consciousness.
And by the way, if I read you that paragraph and just said, "What band am I talking about?" I posit that the 2 that would come to mind would be Pink Floyd and Radiohead.
Probably true. I would say Pink Floyd for sure.
For sure, yeah.
So and I'm less familiar with the Radiohead, although and familiar with them enough, and I know what you're saying. So
Michael, I want to get famous, or not famous, success somehow. I want to have the reach to get to the Radiohead guys so I can talk to them about their influence of Pink Floyd, see how valid this theory is.
That'd be actually a really good point, and you might be right about that. It wouldn't surprise me. This technique,
although the way your channel's growing, they might see this.
It's actually
that was a nod to you, since you.
No, I appreciate
my book,
that.
You know.
I appreciate that. It is surprising how many semi-famous people have kind of reached out to us. I mean, there have been people like, they'll say who they are, and I'm like, really? And I go pull out my record. I'm like, oh yeah, you actually produced this record. You know, and these people, it's weird. We get emails and
that's
a lot
cool.
of we're nobody. But we do have people that find us and contact us, and it's kind of fun. So it's been, and we're still small. So hopefully, anyway. But yes, it is kind of interesting. The technique is especially evident in "Welcome to the Machine" on this album, and in "Echoes," "On the Run," and "Speak to Me" on previous recordings.
Okay, I'll buy that.
So let's see. "Welcome to the Machine" is a concept song in the same realm as "Time," "Money," "Breathe," and "On the Run." Just as time began with clocks and money with cash registers, "Welcome to the Machine" starts with a humming and clanging of industrial machinery. Overlapping rhythmic patterns and machine noises are added one by one, growing increasingly ordered, a blurry picture being gradually focused until a recognizable musical shape, complete with melody, rhythm, and beat, has appeared.
You asked me why I like "Shine On You Crazy Diamond" so much. I think he actually just described it pretty well. It's the time, the patience that they take to bring how did he say it?
A blurry picture,
yeah,
being gradually focused,
but like over across span of many minutes, and they don't even sing until 8 minutes in or something. That's what I love about that song, is the patience and the time it takes for the picture to come into focus.
That's actually really true. When you go back and look at their catalog, I mean, you go back to Dark Side of the Moon, and there are those things where it makes you kind of.
You have to surrender to it.
Yeah, I was going to say you have to work for it.
Yeah.
But that's a better way. You have to just relax and let it kind of wash over you.
Yeah.
And it will take you somewhere. Yeah, that's great. Let's see here. Until recognizable musical shape, rhythm, and beat appeared, the most banal mechanized melody is effectively set against the profundity of the lyrics. Waters' "Machine" is the product. is the production. No, I think that says production, which knows where you've Waters been. Okay, this is great. The machine tells Waters, we told you what to dream through social conditioning and argument for social determinism. His dreams were to be a big star, play a mean guitar, eat in the steak bar, and to drive in a Jaguar. Yeah, he seems...
I honor the pronunciation. You leaned into their pronunciation. Yeah,
that's how he says it. Yeah. He seems to be asking himself, and this is, I actually read this earlier and I thought this was interesting. He seems to be asking himself, am even I, Roger Waters, a product of the system? And responding, so welcome to the machine. And that's an interesting way to look at it, because if he's saying, welcome to the machine, that means he's in the machine.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what I've been struck by is that the mechanized handshake is not a mechanized hand shaking a human hand. It's two machine hands.
That is
so it's like he's acknowledging, this is like the artist surrendering to the machine in saying, as soon as I shook the hand, my hand became the machine too, because it's two machines shaking hands.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Okay, despite the use of electronics and volume, Floyd has managed to retain a flowing, mellow quality to their music, which makes it unique and memorable. The melodies are very hypnotic due to a wave pattern of pitch variability, close-in phase assimilation with the instrumentation and the words being sung continuously as one word and without diction. The melody flows in gentle curves as the lead guitar, keyboard, or sax propels it towards a climax. These hypnotic melodies, combined with electronic exaggerations of sound and instruments, produce musical illustrations of the beautiful subjective aspects of alternate forms of consciousness. Thus, Pink Floyd have made the best attempt to musically represent magic since the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper Magical Mystery Tour period. That's a really interesting comparison.
Is he saying that about the band or about this album in particular, do you feel? Because I think that would be a provocative statement if it was isolated to just this album.
Boy, it's hard to imagine it'd just be this album because Dark Side of the Moon is every bit.
That's my point. Yeah. But let's and he does say Pink Floyd have made, and in any case.
Interesting.
Yeah, to the band.
In the title song, Wish You Were Here, two mellow acoustic guitars locked in tight harmony are the basis for the more sardonic and cryptic approach to songwriting. By the way that song starts with that kind of AM radio sounding guitar and then the full body acoustic coming in, one of the coolest production decisions that they could have made. It's so amazing. I love that so much. The song's poetry is probably aimed at Syd Barrett, but Waters ain't no Dylan, and it shows.
Here we go.
I don't want to comment too much about that because one of my friends, Jess, who watches this show, thinks Dylan's the greatest person in history. And I like Bob Dylan, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I love this stuff.
Me and my wife, we have had the what is it about Bob Dylan conversation like multiple times. And I might offend someone, but I don't get it.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat. Let me put it, I'll tell you something.
And I didn't mean to go there, but now we're there.
It's okay, because I'm not afraid to say the same thing. I don't get it when he does it. So for example, what's the one, The Girl from the North Country?
Okay.
One of the most beautiful songs ever written when Crosby, Stills and Nash does it.
Okay, fair
when
enough.
Bob Dylan does it, it's just like, whoa, I don't know how Stephen Stills ever heard that song that they play. And it's like all the stuff that he did. And when you listen to those lyrics, now I don't know that those lyrics, that anything he did was, the lyrics are as amazing as everybody claims they are. Some of them are. I mean, I don't want to knock it too much because Girl from the North Country is hauntingly beautiful, but I get lost in his execution of it. But you listen to Crosby, Stills and Nash do Girl from the North Country and you'll hardly ever hear a more beautiful piece of music in your world, including the lyrics.
I'll be listening to that
oh my gosh,
on the way
it's
home.
So great. So, okay. So, but
we digress.
Yes,
we digress.
So Ain't No Dylan, and it shows a song. But look, on that thing, I also think that there's something about Bob Dylan where people, kind of like feel like they have to say that a little bit.
Right.
People are going to get so mad at this, but there is a little bit of where like I'm cultured too because I love Bob Dylan.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't
with that.
hate him. I'm not going to knock him too much because he has amazing stuff. But there is this edge where at this point where I go, okay, I see that he's a very, very, but I don't understand the godlike status that people put him on, the pedestal. That's my thing.
Yeah, that's my take. Like he's like, well, I know we're not talking about Bob Dylan. He's like a pretty good folk singer.
Yeah, and he's got some great tunes, great lyrics, but I don't get the godlike status. That's my thing. Okay.
Anyway, moving on.
A song which defies all methods of cryptoanalysis, Wish You Were Here expresses the sentiments of its title. But where is here? In the words of Roger Waters, Syd Barrett is on the dark side of the moon, and Rogers wishes he was here in the world of the sane and functioning. Part 8 of Shine On You Crazy Diamond is a short and well-improvised piece featuring a definite Wakeman-ish flavor in the Moog and Mellotron combination, while the last part drags on in the same melancholy mood the album started with. And of course, they're referring to Rick Wakeman there.
Drags on. Do you feel like that was pejorative, or just
last part
descriptive?
Drags on in the same melancholy? I don't know. Could be.
Didn't sound flattering.
No, it does. When you say drags on, that is rarely positive. Okay. The Floyd pervert their musical line with the genius that comes with maturity, and as a result build solid structures. Many other space rock bands pervert for the sake of perversion, Hawkwind, or with technical precision but awkward artistry, ELP and Tangerine Dream. If anything, this album demonstrates that Pink Floyd's superiority is a result of a well-balanced musical effort. Unlike countless other bands, the members have close and long-standing personal ties and do not need to play at animosities on stage. Instead, they enhance the individuality of each other by a mutual awareness which permits sheer elaborateness in embracing a cohesive sound, while each performer only adds as much as is required. I love that line.
Yeah.
Because that gets back to my whole, the whole thing I was saying earlier about David Gilmour. It's just perfect.
It's, I mean, uniquely among like big 70s rock bands, there's no virtuosos. There's no virtuosic music there. I mean, think about all those big bands you were naming.
Like ELP, for example. I mean, those three guys are,
Even Zeppelin. I mean, they're all, you've got some phenom buried in the mix, whereas I wonder how much of that was by design and how much of that was just sort of inherent to their own limitations.
Yeah. Whatever they did what was right for the song. And that's one of the reasons I love Gilmour so much. It was like, we're not, all I'm trying to play here is what the song requires.
But I think you can say that about every one of them too.
Oh yeah.
Who's the keyboard player?
So you've got Richard Wright.
Richard Wright, yeah. Man, I mean, and I would reference Dark Side, like some of his chords and stuff. Would you compare that to like you mentioned, like ELP or a lot of like 70s? Yes. 70s keyboard where it's almost like jazz virtual.
Yeah, that's why they were talking about Wakeman there a second.
But they're just looking for they're just trying to get the meaning across and nothing else. That's how it feels.
Yeah, when you look at videos of these guys, I think there's a whole video of them putting Dark Side of the Moon together and watching them work with the Moogs and the and Mellotrons. And it's like what's perfect for the song. Let's see here. Instead, they enhance the individuality. You already read that part. Embracing, cohesive. Their energy isn't produced from audience-performer ego relations. Their energy comes from each other and from within. And that's the end of that particular article. One of the things that they didn't say in here that I think is kind of interesting that we kind of forget. When you listen to the song "Have a Cigar," you kind of assume that this is, at least I always did, that was David Gilmour singing that, which it isn't. It's Roy Harper singing that, which is kind of an interesting thing to have this other, in the middle of this incredible album, something that David Gilmour could have certainly sang anyway.
Right.
And they have this whole other person come in there.
Which, I happen to know the story, but if I didn't, I would go, wait, who? Who's Roy Harper?
They even make reference to him on Led Zeppelin 3, isn't it? Hats off to Roy Harper. I think it's on 3.
I had not caught that
what's the story? Because I don't know the...
Oh, well, the story was that they were recording at Abbey Road Studio. I think it was Abbey Road Studios. And even if I'm wrong, it's the 70s, so just say Abbey Road Studios. I think it was, though. And they Roger Waters did a take, David Gilmour did a take, and they just weren't happy with either take. They're just like, we're not getting it. And Roy Harper was just like in the studio because he was recording later that day. And they were like,
kidding.
hey,
I didn't know this.
Roy, would you come take a stab at it? And then I want to say Roger Waters wasn't that happy with it, but David Gilmour loved it. And so they kept it.
How interesting. I didn't know the story.
But he's just like an English, is he like a folk singer, I want to say?
That may be, I think that's true.
An English folk singer, yeah.
But, well, I didn't know the story.
And I did only because I read about it. That there's only 2, and I can't remember the second one. Someone in the comments might remember. There are only 2 Pink Floyd songs ever released that weren't sung by Roger or David.
What's the other one?
That's what I can't remember.
Okay, in the comments.
To the audience, right?
In the comments. Yeah, awesome. Anyway, that's I think that I picked this particular article because this guy seemed like he mostly got it. And he was actually explained it in a way that made sense to me, and that's why I thought we'd look at that one. So anyway, so this album was a big deal, and I'm glad we picked this one because this one was a big deal to you.
It really is. I'll listen to it when I have nowhere to be and nothing to do. It's probably one of my top 5. Put it on when there's like. No, it's like when I'm not even sure what I want, it comes through.
Okay, makes sense. I mean, there's so much. There's so much great
and
stuff
also,
on here.
Like, I feel like we could do a whole podcast talking about 2 lost souls swimming in a fishbowl
year after year.
That line, I don't know. That line might be my favorite line of music ever. and the way he sings it too.
Yeah,
oh, so good.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff.
Are we 2 lost souls swimming in a fishbowl year after year? I mean, here we are. We've known each other for years.
I know,
Robert.
for many, many years. That's true.
Yeah.
So, very good. Well, hey, thank you. Thanks for being here, man. That was really fun. I'm glad we did this. It's been so long. Yeah, because we hadn't seen each other in like a year.
No.
So, text every once in a while, and that's about it. So, anyway, this is a blast. And again, I just want to plug. Where did I put your book?
I think you put it back on the shelf.
Okay. Like I said, this is shameless plugs. I highly encourage you to buy this book. It's available on Amazon. I'm not kidding you. When we were recording this, I was sitting in the control room, you're sitting in the sound room, and the entire time, we do a lot of audiobooks here.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you what, I'll be honest with you, most of the time I am so bored. And I'm just sitting there, and it's all I can do, because what I usually do is I sit in the control room and I read along. Just to make sure that nothing's being missed. And because most people don't realize when you read stuff, you are always everybody does. You skip words, you say the wrong word. It happens to everybody. Trust me, everybody does.
And I can say as the reader, half the time you make a mistake, you don't even realize you made a mistake.
That's exactly.
So if there wasn't an auditor, you wouldn't even know to go back and fix it.
So whenever I'm working with people, I'm usually the one sitting in the other room, with the monitor reading along the book. And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so boring. This is not boring. This book was so much fun. It's like it just rewires you like, what the heck? The whole world looks different after you read this book. Highly encourage you to get this book. All right, cool.
Means so much.
Anyway, it's really good stuff.
That's all I'm going to say, but I'll tell you more later how much that means.
I appreciate it. Well, that's cool. And I appreciate you being here. This is super fun. Hey, follow the channel if you're not following the channel already. Please leave your comments. Please, please, please. Any of your thoughts about any of the stuff that we talked about, the article, what was your experience with this album? Did you get it back at the time? Was it something you discovered like me and Jeff many years later, after you're grown and then now we already have the entire library of Pink Floyd available to us. And of course, share this with other people. If you like this, I guarantee you know somebody else that does, and they would appreciate you sharing it with them. All your comments down, like the video, and with that, have yourself a fantastic day.